So what is the Book of Mormon? What is it about? And what is its message? So many questions, right? In this video, we're going to go over the basic history of the Book of Mormon and some common concerns like DNA, archaeology, and geography. So this is the short version of what the Book of Mormon is. It claims to be an ancient record, basically of a civilization that thrived in the ancient Americas and who worshiped Jesus. Much of it happened during the same time period as the Bible. And this group spanned almost 1,000 years. It has some pretty amazing historical counts like massive wars and migrations and crazy politics. But it's also full of the teachings of their ancient prophets, their sermons and their letters, trying to convince the people to follow Jesus. So this civilization goes in and out of following Christ. And the book is all about what happens when we choose Christ or not. And even though it's about an ancient civilization, it's surprisingly very applicable on a personal level. But here's a bit more of a detailed version of what happens in the Book of Mormon. So it starts in Jerusalem about 600 BC, and a small group of families flee and eventually they sail somewhere to the Americas. Shortly after that, they kind of split into two different groups. Those that followed Nephi were called the Nephites, and those that followed Laman were called the Lamanites. And these are the two main groups that would fight against each other throughout the book's almost 1,000-year history. Meanwhile, Nephite prophets are trying to get the people to remember God, to humble themselves before Him, to find protection from their enemies, and to prosper and survive in the land. The book shows how following Christ can lead to these blessings. And these prophets continuously explain to their people who Jesus is and what His gospel is. Some sections are entire sermons by these leaders with deep teachings about Jesus Christ and His gospel. They also prophesy that Jesus will one day visit them. And that leads to the biggest event in this book. Hundreds of years after they arrive and create this large civilization, Jesus Himself visits these peoples shortly after His resurrection. And He shares His gospel message with them. And it all just shows how Jesus is the God of all peoples, not just those in the old world. And the history continues to a bit after 400 AD. After centuries of numerous battles and wars and deaths, the people eventually abandon their belief in Christ, and the entire Nephite civilization collapses. And there's a prophet left who compiles all their records together, named Mormon. And that's where the name Book of Mormon comes from. He compiles this record on golden plates and gives it to his son Moroni. Moroni eventually buries this record where it stays for over 1,000 years. Then eventually, Moroni, as a glorified angel, appears to Joseph Smith and tells him where the record is. Joseph finds it, he translates it, and he publishes it, and that's how we have the Book of Mormon today. Now, here are some deeper questions people might ask about the Book of Mormon's history. Like, why don't we have any archaeological evidence of these people? Or why don't we have DNA evidence for them? Or where did it all happen exactly? There's a pretty simple concept that helps answer a lot of these questions. It's that when this small group of ancient Hebrews initially came into the Americas, they found themselves surrounded by many Native Americans already in the land. The Book of Mormon doesn't directly say this, but there are lots of hints of it, such as how fast they learned to plant corn and build cities, how fast some groups lose their language, and indirect references to other outside groups. We can do a really fun video about this later, but the point here is that when Lehi arrived, there were others who they interacted with. And over time, they would start to become part of that broader culture, intermarrying, adopting many of their traditions, while trying to maintain their own beliefs. So with this idea in mind, it's easier to understand how their Hebrew DNA would be lost. That's not a simple cop-out answer here. That's just how science and genetics works. They call it genetic drift or founder effect, especially if this group has been mixing for a couple thousand years until today. Now, there are some members who think they've found Middle Eastern DNA in Native Americans, but those claims just aren't scientifically supported. You can check out the church's official DNA essay for a deeper dive about this. And when it comes to archaeology, that would slowly be lost as well. There are plenty of ancient civilizations that we have very little evidence for. Now, I do think there is archaeological evidence for the Book of Mormon that we'll get into later, but as far as very specific or widespread evidence, it's kind of natural that any bigger group would absorb a smaller group, losing traces of their existence, especially if that smaller group was destroyed as the Book of Mormon peoples were. For example, a lot of Mesoamerican ruins today are from later cultures who built on top of older cultures. Understanding that the Book of Mormon peoples were a group surrounded by millions of Native Americans already in the Americas, and that the book is not about every Native American, also explains why we can't really pinpoint where exactly it all happened. The church's official position about where it happened is found in an essay called Book of Mormon Geography. Their only stance is that it happened somewhere in the Americas. But while there is no doctrinally correct location, researchers do generally point to a specific area. The Book of Mormon mentions things like battles with tens of thousands of deaths, fortified cities and battles between these cities, and a complex level of government and politics and high agriculture, and other things like a West Sea and an East Sea, and that these people were literate. And due to all of that, the most widely accepted possibility among Latter-day Saint scholars is that it likely happened somewhere in Mesoamerica, where all that criteria is most likely. And by the way, so many things just come alive in the book with this perspective. Now, there are many members in the church who support other models. There's a South American model, a North American model, even a Baja model. And if you read church history, you'll see that most early saints, like Joseph Smith, thought it happened all over the Americas, and that's why there are statements all over the place. It wasn't until we put more research into the book that we realized it probably happened in a much smaller area. Though again, the church's official position is simply that it happened somewhere in the Americas. So thanks for watching, and keep discovering the Book of Mormon.